Ah, the Zhentarim. Now there's a name that carries weight, like a bag of gold or a dagger at your throat. That one over there. Aye, don't stare too long. He's one of their ilk, I'd wager. You see the way he watches the room like a wolf scouting prey? That is the mark of a Zhent, ever suspicious, ever scheming. The Black Network, they call themselves, though that's a name that shifts like shadows. In the span of 2 centuries, they've been everything from a band of common cutthroats to an empire of warlocks and conquerors, all twisting beneath the yoke of dark gods, Bane, Cyric, and whoever else they bent knee to at the time. Power, control, coin, all of it in service to themselves above all. Once, their grip choked the Moonsea, ruling through fear and force until misfortune and war ground them down. But like weeds, they never truly die. Now their stronghold lies in the Western Heartlands, in the shadowed keep of Darkhold. Oh, don't let their merchants and mercenaries fool you into thinking them softened. They are vipers still, waiting for the right moment to strike. Do I hate them? Hate is wasted on creatures such as these. But trust them? Ha! That would be a fool's errand. The Zhentarim are not to be trusted, not as allies, not as foes. They play the game long and well, and those who misjudge them often find themselves bled dry, one way or another. Now, if you'll excuse me, I believe my friend in the corner has been listening a little too closely. Now, Lord Brary, tell our friends here what the Zhentarim is all about.
Thank you, Elminster. Today we gather a series of parchment to uncover the Zhentarim, also known as the Black Network. The Zhentarim, also known as the Black Network, is sometimes known as an evil organization intent on dominating the land from the Moonsea to the Sword Coast north. Originally a secret society, for years the Zhents have operated openly in the Moonsea area, particularly around their greatest base of operations, Zhentil Keep. People who live near Zhentarim strongholds grow used to caravans with its symbol, but live in fear that someday they will see armies marching under that banner. While many of the Zhentarim are nothing more than opportunistic merchants, some resort to illegal acts such as attacking rival caravans, extorting villagers for food, or more serious crimes such as arson and murder. The Zhentarim hire bandits to attack other caravans and towns, or have wizards conjure up or enrage monsters. Recently they have begun sending older members to frontier nations such as the Silver Marches, where they buy land and become peaceable homesteaders, with families biding their time until they are needed. The agents of the Zhentarim are well equipped with both mundane and minor magic items. Masterwork items are common, and non-spellcasters usually have at least a potion of some sort. Spellcasters in good standing with the Black Network gain a scroll or two from their superiors. Fear of this cabal has spread from the Moonsea lands across the Heartlands to the Sword Coast, where everybody knows the Black Network is a sinister, murderous organization of spies, informants, armies, and flying monster-riding wizards engaged in all sorts of secret and terrible activities. Folk who live in the Dragon Reachlands know rather more about the Zhentarim. They can tell you that it rose to open rule and power in Zhentil Keep. They then seized control of the citadel of the Raven from the other Moonsea cities that shared it, conquered Tesschendale, Vunlar, and Ulash, and plotted the conquest of Shadowdale, Daggerdale, and Mistledale. The Zhents at one point had entire armies hidden away in the citadel and a sinister fortress, Darkhold, somewhere in the Western Heartlands. Zhent gold and sorcery govern affairs west across Anarok to the vales of the Grey Peaks, east of the walls of Mulmaster, north through the Ride and the cold lands to the Great Glacier, and south through the weaker dales. The Zhents are soldiers, from black-plate armoured veteran warriors to marauding orc mercenaries, commanded by aggressively cruel minor wizards of more ambition than power, who report to truly powerful mages headed by the sly-tongued Lord Manshoon, at least at the height of their power. The Zhentarim seem bent on enriching themselves and controlling towns, villages, and entire realms along a trade route linking the Moonsea with the Sword Coast. And they have a specific fondness for Waterdeep due to the ties with the Darkhold. They smuggle slaves, poisons, and contraband to those who request it, and pay a fair price. They have spies everywhere. In their golden times, they had a knight known as the Perigost, and Zhentil Keep's charismatic champion. Anyone could be a Zhentarim, and some of them seem to want to seize all the magic they find, while others want to rule every town and steading between Sholung and Evermeet. How much of this is truth, and how much exaggerated speculation is the topic of endless conjecture in whispered conversations across half the Heartlands. The Black Network was founded between 100 to 200 years ago by the dark and powerful Lord of Zhentil Keep, the wizard Manshoon. Through guile, murder, intrigue, and his ever-increasing magical might, Manshoon created a cabal of like-minded wizards, known as the Black Cloaks, beholders, wealthy Moonsea merchants, and servants of evil temples whose purpose did not cross his, most notably, the Temple of Bane. While Zhentil Keep was nominally under the rule of a Council of Lords, the real power in the city was Manshoon, absolute master of the Zhentarim. Through a small number of hand-picked lieutenants, he ran a secret empire of thousands of merchants, mercenaries, spies, and agents. In the years preceding the time of troubles, Manshoon cemented an alliance with Zul Kembrel, an ambitious cleric of Bane, to strengthen the Zhentarim even further. In the last 20 years or more, the reach of the Zhentarim has extended to every corner of Faerûn, forging what amounts to a not-so-secret empire over much of the Moonsea and the North. But the Zhents have also suffered many setbacks, most notably the fall of Bane, internecine strife between Benite faithful and those who turned to Cyric, the destruction of Zhentil Keep in a holy purge, and vicious feuds between Manshoon's Black Cloaks and Zul's clerics. The winner in all this turned out to be Zul Kembrel, who assumed control over the organization for a time and nearly destroyed Manshoon, driving the Archmage into hiding for a time. For years, a lord of Zhentil Keep and leader of the Zhentarim, Manshoon fit the archetype of the sly-tongued, sinister, and decadent evil master spellcaster. He ruthlessly quelled revolts in the ranks of the Black Network, slaughtered his rivals, and weeded the ranks of the young and ambitious by sending such upstart mages on impossible missions to slay Elminster or seize spellfire wielder Chandril Chesser. Hated and mistrusted by his ally Zul, Manshoon calmly manipulated the priest as he did all others, remaining arrogant, untouchable in his power, and faintly amused by everything. That all came forcibly to an end in 1370 DR, when Zul and Lord Orgauth managed to slay Manshoon, and found themselves facing not the sole clone they expected, but a dozen or more stasis clones Manshoon created. No one knows who activated the clones or why, but the chaos caused Faerûn to come alive with ruthless archmages, each convinced that he was, in fact, the real Manshoon and inexplicably compelled to slay his rival clones. Most of the clones perished in battle, and the caches of magic items formerly hidden across Faerûn by Manshoon are now scattered into other hands. Only 3 Manshoons after these battles remained. One reclaimed his place among the Zhentarim, conceding leadership of the organization to Zul Kembrel, but arriving at an understanding with the Chosen of Bane that allows him to make use of the resources and manpower of the Zhentarim. One had rumored to have assumed a position of power among the thieves of Westgate, calling himself Orbak for a time. A third was reported to have taken refuge with Hallister of Undermountain. Those who survived mastered the slaying compulsion by means of various spells and devices. For all intents and purposes, the Manshoon with the Zhentarim for a time appeared to be the real Manshoon. A master tyrant and diplomat, he was accustomed to ruling and manipulating from behind the scenes, and was likely to employ adventurers to work his will wherever he couldn't dupe local authorities to do so. Elminster, I'm sure you know of some realms or towns currently that serve the Zhentarim.
I don't suppose you've heard of Darkhold. It's been many years since folk whispered the name of the place in fear. After all, the Zhentarim, the organization that gave Darkhold its evil reputation, are by all accounts no longer the cadre of thieves, assassins, and evil wizards they once were. And strangely enough, according to my source among the Zhentarim, that change in character can be traced right back to Darkhold. As it was told to me, it came about like this. Zhentarim Keep was burning. The citadel of the Ravens lay in ruins. The leadership of the Zhentarim died, were captured by the Shadowvar of returned Netheril, or were in flight. The vaunted Black Network was shredded. Cells of Zhentarim agents were cut loose, and without connections or direction they dissolved or were crushed by rivals. The Zhentarim were no more, or so it seemed. There was one stronghold of the Zents that had not fallen, and whose leader never wavered in his dedication to the organization. Darkhold stands deep in the mountains of the Western Heartlands, and there the remnants of the Zhentarim quietly gathered. There they swore allegiance anew to the leader who promised to reforge the organization into something stronger than before. The man to whom this new Zhentarim owed fealty was a dark knight known only as the Paraghost. The Paraghost had long led the armed forces of the Zhentarim at Darkhold, and his vision for the revival of the organization was along military lines. After a time of recruitment and training, the Zhentarim emerged from Darkhold not as conquerors, but as mercenaries willing to serve others instead of forcing them to serve. In the years that followed, the transformation served the Zhentarim well. They earned a reputation for sterling service, and their ranks swelled. Those who knew of Darkhold thought of it as the headquarters of this new version of the Zhentarim. Hard to believe, I know. Membership in the Zhentarim is difficult to assess, but my source told me they might have greater numbers now than before their organization's fall. New leadership for this larger group has led to a shift in focus. While still a source of capable mercenaries, the Zhentarim have diversified into mercantile pursuits. Zhent guards now ride alongside caravans of their own. And whereas a military organization served it well in the chaotic period after its fall, my source frequently described the Zhentarim as a family and leaders as my good friend. Troubling, perhaps. My source also spoke in awed tones of the Paraghost, as though that figure were still alive and a leader of Darkhold. The Paraghost is never seen without his full armor and a face covering helm. If it isn't an elf behind the mask, then I suspect a series of humans might have masqueraded as the Paraghost during the past century. Ah, but you see, the Black Network has never slithered through Faerun unopposed. Over the years, they've made enemies, powerful ones at that. Any who threatened their trade, their reach, or their precious schemes found themselves in their crosshairs. But, my dear friend, blades cut both ways, and there are those who would see the Zhentarim undone. The Harpers, for instance, a thorn in the Zhent's side since the very beginning. You might say we have a particular distaste for tyranny, and when the Zhentarim first emerged, it didn't take long for us to recognize the danger they posed. I and many of my ilk, some of the Seven Sisters among them, carry bounties on our heads to this day, courtesy of our shadowy adversaries. They'd see us dead if they could, but we are not so easily plucked from this world. Then there are the Knights of the North, born of betrayal and blood. When Zhentil Keep turned on its allies and seized the citadel of the Raven, those who survived their treachery forged themselves into warriors with one purpose: vengeance. For years, they harried Zhent caravans and struck at their strongholds in the Moonsea, a reminder that betrayal breeds its own consequences. But the Zhentarim do not only war with those who seek justice. No, their hunger for power puts them at odds even with those who share their ruthless ambitions. The Iron Throne of the Sword Coast rivals in trade and treachery. The Rundin of Kalimshan, pirates and slavers whose interests do not align. The Cult of the Dragon, too fanatical for even the Black Network's liking. And the Red Wizards of Thay. Now there's a nest of vipers as conniving as the Zhents themselves. Neither trusts the other, and with good reason. These are but a few of the names etched into the long history of conflict that surrounds the Zhentarim. And yet they endure, as do their foes. A never-ending game played in the shadows, where the stakes are measured in blood and gold. Now then, shall we order another drink?
The embers of the tavern's hearth crackle softly as Elminster returns, then leans forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, his pipe smouldering in his hand.
The night is still young, and there is always more to tell. The Zhentarim, ever the opportunists, ever the schemers. They have left their mark across the lands, from the scalding dunes of Anorok to the frozen reaches of Icewind Dale. A lesson in ambition, but also in the folly of overreach. Take Anorok, for instance. They built the Black Road, carving a path through that sun-blasted wasteland to stitch their influence across Faerun. Oases fell under their grip: Berlith, Hlaunga, Ma'atar, Olomar, Telbadir, each a jewel in their trade empire. And yet, by 1479, it lay abandoned. The sands swallowed their ambitions, as they have swallowed empires before. You see, power is not merely claimed, it must be held, and the Zhentarim are ever learning this the hard way. Chult, now there's a tale. The Zhents worm their way into Port Nyanzaru, embedding themselves among the merchant princes, offering security and muscle. Ifan Talroa, Zhanti, even the so-called beggar prince, pock-marked Po, all their hands were greased by Zhentarim gold. But their interests ran deeper, for they sought something far more valuable than trade: Artus Simba and his accursed ring. Greed and power, they never change. And what of Icewind Dale? The cold is not kind to fools, but the Zhentarim are persistent. Through cunning and treachery, Nerth Maxildanar slithered his way into Targos, seating himself as its speaker. A clever move that. Control the trade, control the 10 towns, and soon the Dale bends to your will. A frigid dominion, perhaps, but dominion nonetheless. The savage frontier has not escaped their grasp either. The Black Road's endpoints, Lork, Albar, claimed as gateways to the north, stamped with the Zhentarim's iron fist, and the Sword Coast, where Carni's influence stretched through Baldur's Gate and beyond, even into the marsh of Chelimber, aided by his lizard-folk thrall, Slavas. Where coin flows, so too do the Zhents, like shadows in pursuit of gold and dominion. They build, they conquer, they manipulate, and yet for all their reach, they have never held Faerun in a single grasp. They are vipers, dangerous, but never kings. The Black Network may rise, but it will ever be met by those who would see its tendrils cut. But what then do the Zhentarim teach us? More than one might think, if one has the mind to listen. The Black Network is a lesson in ambition, in the relentless pursuit of power, wealth, and control. They teach us that those who scheme in darkness shape the world as much as those who stand in the light. They remind us that tyranny is never vanquished, only beaten back for a time, waiting for a new face, a new name, a new promise of dominance. But there is another truth to be gleaned. The Zhentarim thrive because they understand something many forget. Power is taken, not given. They have no patience for idealism, no use for dreams untempered by action. To them, loyalty is a currency, and alliances are fleeting, useful only until a greater advantage presents itself. It is a grim lesson, but a lesson nonetheless. Yet, for all their cunning, the Zhentarim's greatest folly is their belief that power alone is enough. They amass wealth and influence, but at what cost? Fear breeds resentment, and control begets defiance. In the end, even the mightiest empire of shadows can crumble beneath the weight of its own ambition. And therein lies the truest lesson of all. Power without purpose is a blade without a hand to wield it. So keep your wits about you, friend, and watch the roads you walk. There will always be those who would see themselves masters of this world. But mastery is fleeting, and shadows never last forever. Now, if you'll pardon me, I believe I have lingered here long enough. Trouble has a way of finding me, and I would rather not give it the satisfaction just yet.